Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a ton of huge news to brief you all on today. So today's date is June 5th, 2025, and it's Thursday. Welcome back to the channel, guys. I can't believe tomorrow's going to be Friday already. I feel like these weeks have been flying by so quickly. I blink one time on Monday, and then before we know it, we're already at Friday. And I feel like these weeks have been going by so quickly because of all the massive news coming out. And we've got major news again today coming out from the Ukrainian side. Apparently, Ukraine carried out a massive missile attack up in the Bryansk region of Russia, just north of Ukraine, striking an Iskander ballistic missile system like what you see here on your screen. So we're going to start off with this story right here. Ukraine destroys one Iskander ballistic missile system, damaging two more. Ukraine launched a missile strike on June 5th, targeting a concentration of Russian missile troops near the city of Kherson in Russia's Bryansk Oblast, the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces reported. Okay, this is a very big report today because I believe this is a historic strike by Ukraine. The first time they have ever destroyed an Iskander ballistic missile system, and these missiles go into Ukraine almost every single day. It's probably one of the most common ballistic missiles we report on entering into Ukraine, aside from maybe North Korean KN-23s. Those strike Ukraine pretty frequently as well, but these Iskanders terrorize a lot of civilians. Many people have been killed by these, and apparently the Russians were preparing a strike with these missiles just prior to being attacked, and Ukraine wiped out at least one of these, maybe even two. So very big news today. We'll talk more about that. I've got video footage also coming out from the Bryansk region showing the evidence of these strikes. We also have reports that Ukraine carried out a massive UAV drone attack onto Russia again last night. Occupied territory of Ukraine in Zaporizhzhia region, city of Millerovo, was hit again by Ukrainian drones, and we had a power substation, I think, being hit over there as we had more power outages being reported. That's twice this week that Ukraine did that, and I think they're trying to halt the Russian offensive in the south that we've been hearing. Oleksandr Syrsky, the commander of Ukraine's armed forces, reported just a few days ago that the Russians are intensifying their Zaporizhzhia offensive. So we'll talk about that also, and even the Millerovo Airfield in the Rostov Oblast, southwestern Russia, being attacked last night as well. Lots of other news to cover, guys. Let's just go ahead and get right into this. Let's hop on over here to X with the Kiev Independent. Ukraine strikes Russian missile base in Bryansk Oblast, damages Iskander launchers, Ukrainian military says. The strike reportedly destroyed one Iskander missile launcher and seriously damaged two others. So that was the official report. Just wanted to show you guys here from the Kiev Independent. This is a mainstream news outlet coming out from Ukraine. They reported on this today. So it looks like we did have a confirmed hit on one of these being destroyed, and also two others being damaged, according to Kiev Independent. Now from Bandera Fella, historic first, Ukrainian General Staff confirms the first ever strike on Russian Iskander ballistic missile launchers. Target 26th Missile Brigade, stationed near Kherson, Bryansk region, moments away from launching strikes on Ukrainian territory. Result was one launcher detonated, two more likely damaged. Okay, so here's the video footage coming out today. We'll kind of roll this back a little bit. So it looks like one was already hit right here. You can see some smoke. There's that second one right there getting blasted. You can see the detonation of these missiles flying everywhere. You can see one over here and also over there. They're cooking off as these things were loaded with Iskander ballistic missiles on top of them, preparing to fire into Ukraine. Ukraine was able to locate these and launch strikes immediately. So I don't know what kind of missiles were being used here. I would assume maybe HIMARS, because I think HIMARS can reach to this distance in the Bryansk region, but it could have been another type of munitions being used here. But as we can see, a detonation of possibly two Iskander ballistic missile launchers. I wish we were able to see a little bit closer, but this drone footage was able to capture these strikes over here. So I do only see two explosions here. I'm not sure where the third one took place at, but allegedly we have confirmation of one being destroyed. It's probably that one right there. Possibly two more being damaged, according to Ukraine's general staff today. So huge strike and very historic. Now for military news UA, photo of the fire in Kherson, Bryansk region, Russia caused by missile strike and Iskander launchers. Here's pictures coming out also from that area. You can see all this smoke up in the skies over here due to this attack on these Iskander M ballistic missile launchers. There's some more smoke over the top of somebody's house right there. And in the distance, we can see a lot of smoke over here, okay? So this was a major hit, And these things are very expensive. I want to say they cost somewhere around $500 million. I could be wrong on that number. I did see a number like that floating around recently, but nonetheless, very expensive. And I'm not sure how many of these Russia has. I think they could have over 100 of these available or active in service, but still a major hit by the Ukrainians today. Now from Tendar, Ukrainian forces successfully destroyed at least 2 Russian Iskander launchers near Klintsy, Bryansk region in Russia. Russian assets have been preparing to strike the Ukrainian capital. Here was the coordinates. So we're going to go over this map here. And it says this is the second time in a very short time frame where strategic Russian assets have been destroyed before being able to strike Ukraine. Yeah, very true, guys. I mean, just like these strategic bombers, they were preparing a massive attack on Sunday. It was probably going to be carried out maybe later that evening or something, and Ukraine went ahead and struck those airfields. And many of these Tu-95s were loaded with Kh-101 cruise missiles that were preparing to attack Ukraine. Ukraine went and took them out. So here's the village of Klintsy right here. It might be a little tiny for you guys to see, but right next to this kind of red pin drop is where it took place at, okay? So just over the border of Ukraine, this kind of blue area is Ukrainian territory. This dark yellow line indicates the border of Russia and Ukraine. This is where it was taken place at with this strike, okay? So pretty significantly deep into Bryansk region. So I believe HIMARS should be able to attack those positions. That's what I'm thinking was used here to strike those launchers. So very big hit today. Now we'll move on to these drone attacks taking place inside of Russia last night. We'll start off here with Military News UA. Another large-scale attack by Ukrainian drones on the territory of Russia and the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine is reported. So here's the map from Drone Bomber on Telegram showing the direction of all these drones entering into Russia last night, also occupied Ukraine. You can see a lot of them heading down here to Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Some were also going over to Crimea last night. You can see the direction. They're kind of coming from the west of Crimea, so those might have been Magura V5 naval drones, or the Sea Babies, but a lot of them also entering up here towards the northeast, over towards Belgorod, Kursk, deeper into Russia, maybe Voronezh Oblast. But the major reports we have today is Zaporizhzhia and Rostov, Rostov being that Millerovo Airbase. So let's move on to NOAA reports. Massive Ukrainian UAV attack is underway. Lots of drones were reported on Russian territory already. In Millerovo, there are power outages reported. Rostov explosions are heard as air defense engaging drones. Okay, so this was a report of these two major attacks that we know of, Millerovo and Rostov being attacked last night. Here's from Max 25 now, Bavovna in Enerodar, probably pronouncing that wrong, sorry guys, Millerovo and Shesk region. Power is out again, okay? We got a couple videos here. Not really much sound on these, so we'll just go ahead and let them play, but what it looks like over here is a power substation exploding after the Ukrainian drone attack, and we know Ukraine has been going after these substations deliberately, trying to knock out the power so that way the Russians don't have as many tools or assets that they can use to attack in southern Ukraine. As we know, as I told you guys from the beginning of this video, that the Russians are beginning their major offensive in the south in the Zaporizhzhia direction. Here's another video also showing some sort of explosion over here. I'm not sure what that is, but we can see a lot of explosions taking place there and a bright flash of something happening. Definitely some sort of explosion took place in the Zaporizhzhia direction down here. Okay, so Ukrainian drones entering down there. Now from NOAA reports, Millerovo, Russian air defenses is very active. Okay, so here's a video coming out near the Millerovo Airfield last night as Ukrainian drones were attacking that area. Don't have any confirmed reports of strikes on the Millerovo Airfield, but it is an airfield that has been attacked many times by Ukraine. Take a look. All right, so a little hard to see what's going on here, but we can see a lot of air defense very active over here at the Millerovo Airfield. This is an airfield that stations, I believe, Su-30s and Su-35 fighter bombers that constantly launch strikes onto Ukraine. And Ukraine has attacked this airfield. I've probably reported over the last year, maybe like 4 or 5 times it being attacked. It's located very close to the Ukrainian border, so it's very easy for Ukraine to attack this base. So it looks like they were launching drones over there, and once again going after airfields inside of Russia. We've been seeing that lately over the last few weeks. That's been the major target that Ukraine goes after is airfields. Now we're going to jump onto some reports today of attacks inside of Ukraine. Okay, some of the worst strikes I've ever seen here. We'll start off with this report from Null Reports. A guided bomb strike hit the Kherson Regional Administration building this morning, causing significant damage. Reports also indicate FPV drones targeted civilians in the streets, an increasingly common tactic in Russian attacks on Kherson. So, video footage coming out today showing the regional administration building. And what this is basically like a governmental building in Kherson being leveled to the ground by guided aerial bombs that were dropped. And reportedly, it was hit 2 times, actually. This was the first strike by guided aerial bombs. Soon after, it got hit by missiles as well. So you can see here from the very beginning just being leveled to the ground with all these strikes. And the Russians have been doing this, just leveling all kinds of buildings. And this has no military, absolutely no military effect at all, on Ukraine. This is strictly just a government building used for civilian purposes. And the Russians went ahead over here and just completely destroyed it today. So very barbaric attack from the Russians again. That was another photo coming out showing a massive hole here on the top. I've got a few others I can show you guys. Now for more translated, Russia struck the regional administration building in Kherson for the second time today, this time with a missile. Half the building is simply gone. I mean, look at that, guys. This is like the front of the building here, just completely wiped out due to these double tap strikes, okay? Guided aerial bombs first. Soon after, a Russian missile came in, destroying the rest of the building. They won't be able to utilize this anymore. And the city of Kherson has been getting hit so hard. And then these reports of FPV drones chasing people down the streets. That's something we've been hearing multiple times down there. And again, now I'm showing you guys that information again. We hear that a lot coming out from Kherson. Now for Null Reports, the moment of the second strike on the Kherson Regional State Administration building. Okay, so here's a video also. You're going to see it right here, that missile come in. I'll roll it back again just in case you missed it. It zooms in, and then you see that missile drop, and then bam, right there. So judging the way that missile looks, it kind of looks like it was another bomb being dropped. Not 100% if it was a missile, but people are saying that it was struck by a missile the second time. Kind of looks like it was a bomb, though, but you guys can let me know what you think. But regardless, this building completely being wiped out and destroyed today in the city of Kherson. This is down in southern Ukraine, so very sad to see that. Now for more translated, before and after the Russians decided to liberate Kherson. Okay, so here's a picture of what that building looked like prior. Now look at what it looks like, completely gone and will not be usable anymore. And it's going to take them a long time to restore it. And I'm sure Ukraine probably won't even bother restoring this building right now because, Russia's repeatedly attacking. They'll probably just go ahead and destroy it again. So once again, more reports of civilian attacks inside of Kherson today. Now from Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. Last night, Russia struck Pryluki in the Chernihiv region with 6 attack drones. The rescue operation continued throughout the night. Unfortunately, there have been injuries and fatalities. One of the rescuers arrived to deal with the aftermath right at his own home. Turned out that a Shahed drone had struck exactly his house. Tragically, his wife, daughter, and 1-year-old grandson were killed. And this is already the 632nd child lost since the full-scale war began. My condolences to all the relatives and loved ones. Russia constantly tries to buy time to continue its killings. When it doesn't feel strong enough condemnation and pressure from the world, it kills again. Overnight, Ukraine was attacked by 103 drones, 1 ballistic missile, targeting the Donetsk, Kharkiv, Odessa, Sumy, Chernihiv, Dnipro, and Kherson regions. This was another massive strike by terrorists, Russian terrorists who kill our people every night. It's yet another reason to impose maximum sanctions and apply pressure together. We expect action from the United States, Europe, and everyone in the world who can really help change the terrible circumstances. Strength matters. The war can only end through strength. Moscow must be pressured by all available means and gradually deprived of its ability to continue this aggression. I mean, just crazy, guys. Here's that regional administration building today in Kherson. Strikes over here inside of Ukraine again, probably in the city of Pryluki in the Chernihiv region. This is up in northern Ukraine, right over the border of Bryansk. Here's a report or a picture, of a high-rise building directly hit by a drone last night. And another picture here also showing somebody's home being destroyed as well, guys. So very sad reports here, and unfortunately people losing their lives once again, even a young child being killed in these attacks. So very sad news, guys. Now for no reports, overnight Russia launched more than 25 drones at Odessa region in Belgorod Dnistrovsky district. The attack damaged civilian infrastructure, including the destruction of a family medicine clinic and damage to a school and youth creativity center. This is yet another act of repetitive terror against civilians. Even more civilian infrastructure inside of Ukraine being targeted and hit last night. Look at all this building destroyed here, caught on fire, destruction on the inside as well. Here's one more video or picture coming out here also showing destruction to this building. So over in the Odessa region, southwestern Ukraine, massive strikes over here also on civilian infrastructure. Now from Anton Gerashenko, Russia strikes on Kharkiv last night. Russia intensifies attacks on Ukrainian civilians, So up in northeastern Ukraine now, in the Kharkiv region, we have the city of Kharkiv once again being attacked by Russian drones. You can see a high-rise building got a direct hit over here as well. And, once again, guys, how many times can we say it? Civilian infrastructure inside of Ukraine being hit, people's lives being taken away, people being injured in these strikes. I mean, absolute barbaric attacks from the Russians repeatedly almost every single night. And, this is expected to get even worse, especially after Ukraine carried out this attack onto the airfields, going after strategic bombers. I'm sure Russia's going to want even more revenge, and we're going to see a lot of people, unfortunately, losing their lives as this war continues to pick up even more and escalate. So very sad also from there. Now I've got numerous miscellaneous reports I want to share with you guys here today from Liskovka. Trump admitted that the SSU special operation on Russian air bases was powerful and cool, but is concerned that it will complicate his ceasefire mission, according to Axios. One of the U.S. president's advisors said, from an international perspective, you have a chihuahua doing real damage to a larger dog. Yeah, that was actually stated by Keith Kellogg. I think that was yesterday. So apparently this new report today from Axios says, Scoop, Trump admired Ukraine's badass attack, but worries what's next. So, yeah, allegedly Trump told Zelensky it was a badass attack, that he did a really good job, but he's worried that it will complicate his efforts in a ceasefire. I mean, obviously, Russia's very upset with this attack on their airfields, and we had Putin coming out and vowing retaliation yesterday, apparently, according to Trump, during a phone call that they had. So I'm curious what they were actually talking about. Maybe Putin was giving some information on how badly the airfields were damaged or something. So possibly indicating there was probably really massive damage to those strategic bombers. Now for military news UA. United States refusing to provide air defense assets to support the coalition of the willing, a group of European countries, including Britain and France, that is prepared to deploy troops to Ukraine after the war ends to deter any future ceasefire violations by Russia, Bloomberg reports. So this actually came out yesterday, and I was not able to go over this. So I wanted to bring it up today and show you guys. So apparently, yeah, the U.S. is not willing to deploy air defense assets to Ukraine in the event that we get a ceasefire. This was to support the coalition of the willing. This was like the UK, France, numerous other European nations that might deploy troops into Ukraine to secure Ukraine's sovereignty, and they wanted air defense systems from the U.S. to provide air cover as well. And the U.S. is pulling out from that deal. Apparently, they don't want to do that anymore. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that coming right now, I think, over the weeks. We're going to see more and more supports being pulled away from Ukraine, and this is not good news. It's going to complicate efforts to getting a ceasefire as well, especially, if Europe cannot deploy these troops into Ukraine. That's going to make some issues as well. So just a huge report coming out today. Let me know what you guys think on that. Now for Max 25, China's helping Russia get ahead of Ukraine in the drone race, according to Politico. Chinese companies supply Russia with key components, electronics, engines, optics, navigation, microcircuits, and other equipment. Supplies are made through front companies to bypass export controls and sanctions. According to Ukrainian customs, 98% of imported drones in the first quarter of 2025 were made in China, and almost all of them went to Russia. Thanks to Chinese assistance, Russia has increased the production of long-range drones to 30,000 per year and produces up to 2 million tactical drones. Ukraine, despite its previous leadership, is losing its advantage. Here's a report from Politico. China helps Russia pull ahead in lethal drone war race with Ukraine. Beijing denies helping Moscow, but Russia is scaling up both the production and sophistication of its drones. So more reports that China's doing everything they can to back Russia. I mean, we just had a report, what was it, earlier this week that I showed you guys, that China was no longer sending drones to Ukraine and to many Western nations, but they were going to continue sending them to Russia. I mean, that clearly shows that China's doing everything they can to help Russia right now in this fight against Ukraine. So not good news here, guys. I mean, more reports that China is actively helping Russia in this fight against the Ukrainians. Now, from Max 25, Telegram may be blocked in Russia in the coming months, according to Russian media. Putin recently instructed the government to integrate government services into the Russian messenger, whose interface is similar to Telegram. Russian media report that this may be due to preparations for blocking Telegram and WhatsApp in Russia. Okay, so this is like good and bad, right? Like it's kind of bad actually for me because a lot of my information comes from Telegram, okay? Many of my sources on X get information from Telegram sources, okay? So, yeah, apparently, according to this information, Putin recently instructed the government to integrate government services into the Russian messenger, which is similar to Telegram, okay? So it looks like they're trying to merge those two government services into a similar Telegram platform, and they might block Telegram completely. Could this also be a bad sign that maybe something huge is coming? They're planning to shut down a lot of communications. I don't know what's going to happen over here, but this could be a bad sign here. You guys can let me know how you feel about it. But yeah, apparently they might start blocking Telegram and WhatsApp, and that might make it difficult for us to get information on the inside unless many sources that I'm using already might be able to get information from somewhere else, but we'll see what happens from there. Now, from Savchenko Volodymyr, Ukraine will not lose this war and Russia will not win, according to Andriy Yermak. He's the head of the presidential office out of Ukraine. Ukraine expects strong, painful, and effective sanctions from the U.S. and Europe, which should affect the energy, oil, and banking sectors. Latest drone strikes on Russian military targets are an indicator that Ukraine is not broken and continues to fight. So Andriy Yermak here was on Newsmax. You can see Putin needs to feel the pain of sanctions, what he said. So Andriy Yermak says that Ukraine's not going to lose this war and Russia's not going to win it. They are banking right now on expecting major sanctions to be slammed down onto Russia. I do have a couple of reports talking about that today. Still waiting on these massive sanctions to strike Russia, but maybe we'll hear something this week. I mean, we're already almost at Friday. Who knows what's going to happen with that, but still talks about sanctions right now. Now from Max 25. Russia has dispersed Tu-160 planes from the Belaya Airbase throughout Russia due to the threat of UAV attack. One Tu-160 plane was found at the Nader Airfield. The airfield is located 6,770 kilometers from Ukraine, 660 kilometers from American territory. Okay, so what we're going to start to see now with these Russian strategic bombers and everything, they're going to start dispersing them all over the place and probably constantly keep moving them and maybe even further away from the battlefield. And that's kind of a good thing, actually, because it keeps the Russians on their toes that, they could be attacked again with their airfields. And also, it keeps these bombers far away from Ukraine, making it more difficult for Russia to carry out strikes on Ukraine. So I think this attack, regardless of how many planes they destroyed, was pretty significant. And the psychological effect in this war is more damaging than anything else, and it's making the Russians paranoid that they might be attacked again. So I think it was actually a very smart and tactical move that Ukraine carried out here. So now from Special Kherson Cat, the Russian aircraft targeted during the Ukrainian attack on June 1st were not destroyed but damaged. They will be restored, according to Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov stated in an interview with TASS. So the Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, we talk about him pretty frequently. So apparently he's stating that the attack on these aircraft, many of them can be restored. Okay, so so many satellite images like this were coming out showing these things completely obliterated. I mean, look at that. There's barely any parts left on the ground here. For sure, these are not going to be restored, but maybe there's a few that can be. Maybe there's a few that they can repair them, but think about that. It's probably going to be maybe months before they get those things back online and then test them again and make sure they've been properly restored. So regardless, whether they're able to restore some of these or not, this is a major hit to Russia's strategic bombing fleet. Okay, they're not going to be able to carry out as many attacks. Now from Status 6, this is what Russian servicemen are now riding on Fab 500 UMPK guided aerial bombs installed under the wings of Sukhoi Su-34 bomber, and they're riding 4 Tu-22M3, 4 Tu-95MS for long-range aviation for the train. So apparently they're writing some notes on here pretty much saying that, we're launching these bombs back at Ukraine. This is in for retaliation for these attacks on the airfields, on long range aviation. Here's some more notes that were written on each of these bombs, and they were taking pictures of these. The Ukrainians do this sometimes as well. But yeah, just pictures of these bombs that were going to be flown into Ukraine here very soon. And they're talking about a train here also. And I think they're talking about that train that was derailed. Ukraine blew up like a bridge over there and a train derailed. There was like 388 people that were on that train, many injuries and people being killed on that train. I'm not sure why Ukraine carried out that strike, but I'm sure at the same time the Russians used those trains, those train tracks up in the Bryansk region to transport military equipment for a further offensive in the north of Ukraine. So just pictures coming out from Russia today. Now from Status 6 again, Ukrainian pilots in a French supplied Mirage 2005F fighter jet in service of the Ukrainian Air Force. So I want to show you guys this because we haven't really seen many pictures of these Mirage 2000 fighter jets, and allegedly this is like the back end of it. And we've got some soldiers here standing with the Ukrainian and French flag, showing respect to the French for supplying these jets. So not very often we get to see a lot of Ukrainian fighter jets in service. So just wanted to show you guys that picture there. I thought that was very neat. Now for Max 25, Military reports the U.S. has redirected components for APKWS laser-guided missiles that were intended for a transfer to Ukraine to its Air Force units in the Middle East. This is a contactless fuse with a radio frequency sensor for APKWS missiles, which Ukraine used to shoot down Russian drones. The contactless fuse is one of the most important components of the APKWS because it is it that detonates the warhead of the missile that when it approaches the drone. The integrated semi-active APKWS laser-guided system has turned the 70mm Hydra aircraft unguided missile into a cheap, high-precision missile weapon. The Vampire missile complex was created on the basis of this missile, which can be placed on various transport platforms, in particular on SUVs. The systems were developed specifically for Ukraine to detect, intercept enemy drones. Okay, so this is a very big report today. It came out on the Wall Street Journal that the U.S. is now redirecting some of these supplies for these missiles over to the Middle East. And that's got not good news because we're hearing that maybe there could be a massive war with Iran, or maybe Iran's going to respond, excuse me, if the U.S. decides to go and bomb the nuclear facilities over there inside of Iran. That could happen at any moment. And apparently some key components that are used to detonate these missiles, that whenever these missiles fly up into the skies to take down these drones, they detonate them just prior to hitting the drone, which brings down the incoming Shahed drone. Here's a picture of one of these systems mounted onto the back of a truck. And apparently these were a cheap and effective way of bringing down drones, and now they're going to have a hard time utilizing these and might run out of these interceptors that they can use due to these major components that are being redirected to the Middle East. So what this makes me think is, Trump stating that he wants to put America first many times, and I totally understand that. I think, U.S. forces should be supplied with whatever they need down in the Middle East, and maybe there could be a war breaking out over there, but at the same time, look at how it's affecting Ukraine, and then further evidence that the U.S. is pulling more support for Ukraine, and not good news for the Ukrainians. Now for military news, UA, Canadian armor vehicle manufacturer Roshel has launched production in Ukraine. Okay, so here's a picture of a new armored vehicle that could be in service in Ukraine, and apparently they've launched production over there and will start building these directly inside Ukraine. So more reports of NATO members that are actively setting up defense contracts inside of Ukraine and producing hardware over there versus doing it inside of their own nation. So very big news from Canada. Now for Max 25, Washington may oppose designation of Russia as a threat in final declaration of future NATO summit, according to Euractiv. So yeah, apparently there's another NATO summit coming up. I think it was on June 24th to the 25th. Ukraine might be attending that. I think Zelensky's supposed to be going. He got invited. And apparently one of the big things they were going to be doing there was designating Russia as a threat as a final declaration over here at this summit, and the U.S. might oppose that. And I guess that's not surprising to anybody here. If you've been following this channel, we've been seeing the United States basically siding with the Russians many times, and in a lot of ways protecting them. So it looks like the U.S. might oppose that if that happens to be a thing coming up at this future NATO summit here in a few weeks. Now for more translated, a new drone appeared on the front line. All right, when I first looked at this picture when it was like smaller on X, I was so confused. I was like, "What the heck is that? It looks so weird." And then when I pulled it up full screen and I looked at this, I was like, "Okay, that's an FPV drone carrying a tomahawk here, or like an axe, a throwing axe, right?" And I was like, "How is this going to be effective on the battlefield?" I don't really know why. You guys can let me know what you think about this, but apparently a new type of drone has been seen flying over here, maybe used by the Ukrainians, but it's carrying clearly an axe here that will be most likely dropped onto somebody or something, is what I'm thinking. Let me know what you think, how that'd be effective on the battlefield. Now, for Max 25, Lindsey Graham proposed amending the bill on sanctions against Russia to exempt countries that help Ukraine with defense from tariffs. Many countries still buy Russian oil and gas, but less. Some European countries still maintain relations with Russia, but they help Ukraine a lot, so I want to exclude them. I tell China, if you don't want to have a 500% tariff, help Ukraine. All right, so Lindsey Graham, U.S. Senator out of South Carolina, pushing for a major sanctions bill on Russia right now that could be put to a vote in the Senate here soon, maybe even pass through Congress. We'll see what happens with that. And this would put 500% secondary tariffs on any nations purchasing Russian oil and other commodities. And apparently, the India and also China are major suppliers of that, or purchasers, importers of Russian oil. And apparently, he's going to go and tell China that if they don't want this 500% tariff, help Ukraine, give Ukraine what they need to fight this war. And that's definitely going to expose China, whether China is actually standing for Ukraine or not. But we know that they've claimed to be a neutral country, so I'm not sure how they're going to respond to that, even though we know they're actively helping the Russians right now. And yeah, so apparently that's what his plan is, to try to get many nations like China, maybe even India, to start supplying weapons for Ukraine versus being hit by this tariff. So that could be interesting as well. That could turn a lot of countries, for example, China, that could be siding with Russia over to Ukraine. And we'll see how that turns out. Now, from Tendar, the situation at the Kursk-Sumy front line is that the Russians have gained a few villages north of Sumy without breaking through the lines. Ukrainians, on the other hand, keep pressure on Tjotkino west of it. According to Russian channels, the Russian units in this town are virtually encircled. So, an update coming out from the Sumy region of Ukraine. Okay, so we've been reporting this kind of red section here. The Russians really are advancing a lot over here, guys. It's not super significant, but nonetheless, they are moving forward. We saw basically this probably top right section of this red area here that originally Russia was controlling just about a week ago. Look at how much more they've gained over here. And the city of Sumy is right down here, not too far away. They're already being attacked by Grad missiles being fired over there. FPV drones might start striking Sumy soon. Artillery even as well, and that's not good news because a lot of people live in that city. But just to the west over here in Tjotkino, we have this city in the Kursk Oblast that's repeatedly being attacked, and from what we have information today, the city of Tjotkino is starting to be surrounded by the Ukrainians. So I have reports of that, talking about that right here, and actually from Telegram. Max 25 reports this, says North Channel, a local mess has begun in Tjotkino. It seemed that everything would work out, that perhaps the right decisions would be made, but no. Tjotkino is practically surrounded. The Hols have full control over logistics. Ours, and these are mainly paratroopers of the 56th Airborne Regiment, attached units, and a small number of Special Forces fighters, are completely surrounded. They won't give permission to leave. It is impossible to approach the fighters either on a motorcycle or a bicycle. Their attempts to send reinforcements with ammunition and provisions on foot, but this means 2 or 3 people who die before they even reach the combat zone. Feodosia paratroopers, and these are 2 companies, about 60 people are holding out from the last. They are not going to surrender. They are defending their land. Okay, so looks like things are not going well in Tjotkino. We'll go back to this map here. So it's a small city here on the border of Ukraine and Russia in the Kursk Oblast, and we have the Sumy Oblast here. Allegedly, it is surrounded by the Ukrainians, and apparently they're fighting till the very end. Let's see if Ukraine can completely surround it and maybe cut off that city. And I'm not sure if these Russian soldiers will surrender, but according to that information, they're not going to. Here's another video coming out now from Aurora Borealis. Ukrainian aircraft are dropping AASM-250 hammer-guided bombs on Russian positions in Tjotkino, that same city on the border, near the border with Ukraine and Sumy region. So this video also coming out showing Ukraine's Air Force dropping hammer bombs on some positions over here, and this is that same city that is surrounded right now. Okay, so while the Russians are trying to hide out, Ukrainians are launching repeated airstrikes over here, striking Russian positions and soldiers that might be hiding out in some of these buildings over here. And as far as I know, Tjotkino should be like fully evacuated. It was evacuated a long time ago, back towards the beginning of this offensive when Ukraine launched an incursion into the Kursk region. So crazy video coming out today showing massive strikes over here as well. Now a couple more updates before we get you guys out of here from Null Reports. On the night of June 5th, Russia launched 103 attack drones and a ballistic missile targeting Cherniv, Kharkiv, Odessa regions. Ukrainian defenses down 74, 28 shot down, 46 jammed. Strikes hit 16 locations. So 103 Russian drones, entering into Ukraine last night. Looks like we had maybe even a missile being fired into Ukraine. I wonder if that's the one that was striking that military or the regional administration building, down in the Kherson region, southwestern Ukraine. So nonetheless, guys, 103 attack drones entering Ukraine last night. Looks like they brought down a good majority of these overnight. And our final update of the day, the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of June 5th, according to the armed forces of Ukraine. And our final update of the day, Russia's losses as of June 5th, 930 troops, 2 AFVs, 82 vehicles and fuel tanks, 3 tanks, 39 artillery systems, 95 UAVs, 4 MLRS, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. Okay, so still kind of average numbers here, if anything, a little bit lower than what we have seen. Still under 1,000 troops that we've been seeing on average, about 900 to 1,000 over the last week. Very few AFVs and tanks being destroyed, vehicles and fuel tanks, almost nothing compared to many of the numbers we usually see, closer to like 200. Still, these numbers are very much down. Artillery systems about average, and aside from that, 4 MLRS here. That's a pretty big hit. Those grad launchers being destroyed. But aside from that, not a whole lot still being destroyed here on the Russian side, guys. And lots of big news to cover in today's update. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in for today's update on June 5th, 2025 on Thursday. So let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. With that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.